Product photography is really quite simple. It's very much like just about any other picture. The advantage is you can use a tripod to hold the camera perfectly still because your subject is not moving. Because you can use a tripod, you don't need to worry about shutter speed. So the setup is very simple. Stick to Program in your mode dial. Keep your mode dial set to P. And what this does is allow you to set the ISO and white balance, and you can shift the aperture and shutter settings depending on what you need. You can also move the autofocus brackets around to any part of the screen, which can be helpful for product photography. Again, because the camera is sitting on a tripod, it's not as easy to recompose the picture. So let's go ahead and start by setting your ISO. Press the up navigation button or the ISO button right here. I would choose 100 because you want the cleanest image possible. You don't need to choose anything higher because shutter speed is no longer a factor because you're using a tripod. So go ahead and press set. Now you don't want to use the flash, so keep that down. If you're indoors, you can use just a couple of regular desk lights as long as the light source from each light is the same. Now to set your white balance, go ahead and press the WB button right here. And you can choose tungsten if you're using a tungsten light. And this will white balance for a generic tungsten light, but in your case it may be a little bit off. And if you really need it to be as accurate as possible, you can choose the custom setting. Move over to custom, and in order to set this, go ahead and press the up navigation button. Now place a white piece of paper or a gray card. You can purchase gray cards in any professional photography store. Anything really with a completely neutral tone to it is what you want for the most accurate color. Ideally, you want the white piece of paper in front of the scene where the subject is sitting. As long as the center square is completely filled with the white piece of paper or the gray card, go ahead and press set to calibrate the camera. In my case, I don't have that, so I'm just going to point it up at my white background. I'll press set. And now the custom white balance has been calibrated to the lighting condition that I'm using. I'm using custom white balance 1. As you notice, there were two options. And as long as I don't recalibrate this, it will always remember this setting. So I can come back tomorrow or next week, use the same light source, and I won't need to recalibrate every time before taking my pictures. I just need to set the white balance back to custom 1. Now you can go ahead and take your picture. Remember, focus on your subject, press the shutter button halfway, and recompose to take the shot. If you're using a tripod, it might be a little bit more difficult. You want to compose the picture. You can press the autofocus mode button right here to the left. Stick with the single area autofocus mode and press the down navigation button to adjust its position. Now I can use the 4 navigation buttons to move this around. I can also use the dial in the front to change the size of this square. So I can make it a little bit bigger, or I can make it a little bit smaller and move it around. This way I can focus on my subject and keep the camera framed the way I like it. Go ahead and press set to escape. Now my focusing bracket is up here. I can focus on my target, and I don't need to reposition the camera. I can just press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. Now if you notice that in your case the shutter speed is much too slow. As you can see right now, my shutter speed is plenty fast and I don't need to use a tripod. If yours is much slower because you're not using as much light, then you can use either the 2-second timer or you can use the remote release cable into this port in order to trigger the camera. For the 2-second timer, it's really quite simple. Just move your drive mode switch here to the timer option. Now the timer option is available in the quick menu, and I can press the quick menu button here to access that. Move over to timer and use the up and down navigation buttons to choose the 2-second timer. Press set. Again, just as before, press your shutter button halfway to focus on your target, then press the shutter release the rest of the way to activate the 2-second timer. Immediately and very gently release the camera so it can have those 2 seconds to settle down so it's not moving at all. To find out much more about digital photography and your digital camera, go to lbguides.com.